pipe this into the jail. Listen to this.
Hello there. It is Tuesday, and we all know what 3 o'clock Tuesday is. Another riveting episode of Behind Breaking Bond. You will laugh, you will cry, it will become part of you. Joining me is
Andy Kahan, Director of Victim Services, and as you can see, I'm having a very bad hair day. You can see this product promo hat here, Crimestoppers call tips right here. See, I get to wear this hat, so there.
And he has a big thing of candy.
Well, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, this is like old school candy.
Yes.
Probably no one that's watching this will remember Wax Lips. I mean, look at this one.
Sadly, I do.
You do. We're all looking through here going, yes, this is really good stuff.
Childhood favorites.
But we're also going to give anybody who calls with a really good question. I have black cherry blow pop.
Wow.
This is really a rare find. And as a bonus, have you ever seen this? Yoo-hoo candy?
No, like the Yoo-hoo drink.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
They have, look, Yoo-hoo chocolate. I know Raymond is going. I
need that in my life.
Do I qualify?
I need that in my life, yes.
3 here that I can spare.
So yeah, good question. That's the prize.
Yeah.
So last week we had the primary. What'd you think of the results?
It was fascinating to me because there were some of the incumbent judges that lost their primary and some that won. So it was, if you're going to analyze the elections, you really couldn't analyze it because frankly, it made no sense.
Right.
You had 4 felony district court judges who ran against incumbents in the Democrat primary who lost.
Which is unusual, very unusual.
I've not seen that before. I mean, you've seen judges who are up for re-election, they'll lose in a general election.
Right, but not in a primary.
In their primary. So that again, I was like, wow, I guess people really are paying attention.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, people are starting to make a difference. Some of the judges that we did multiple breaking bond reports on are not. This is kind of the end after this term. Abigail Anastasio. Andy Martin,
Greg Glass had the lowest vote.
He was trounced, but you know, one of the things too that I think he lost so badly was because of he released a defendant who went on to kill a police officer. And I think you had the police union, you had a lot of law enforcement people kind of really pointing that out. And I mean, that was, I think, one of the reasons that he lost so badly, don't you?
It had to have been, but then again, you had to make a concerted effort to vote for his 2 primary opponents, and I believe one of them that we had here a couple of weeks ago, that was from Beverly Armstrong.
Yeah.
So you had to make a concerted effort to vote for the opponent,
right,
of the incumbent judge. Yet at the same time, you also had judges, at least 3 to my knowledge, because 228th, the 230th, and the 248th, all won.
Right.
So that's so again, that tells me that voters at least were aware of the choices that they had, and they made their choice.
Right. And hey, it's not over. I mean, in November, some of these judges that made it through, they're facing strong Republican opposition. And once it gets closer, we will do what we did for the primary. We want to talk to candidates. We always want to talk to current sitting criminal district court judges. It is an open invitation. I will drop whatever I'm doing to do an interview with you because people want to hear from you. And if you want to continue to be a judge, I think you owe it to the public to explain why you've made some of the decisions that you made. If you make these decisions, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to explain the reasoning behind it.
No, I'll tell you what, and if you do appear, we'll give you a Yoo-hoo candy.
I don't know about that. That's
All right, so,
okay.
So every
Your Honor, you too can have a yoo-hoo.
So, like I said, it's going to be a fascinating election cycle in the upcoming general election. Every judge that's up for re-election has an opponent, which is good because the public gets to make choices one way or the other.
And you've already you're being heard. I'm telling you, you're being heard. What happened was pretty surprising that you had these judges, that sitting judges losing in primaries. You had a couple, Hillary Unger, Chris Morton. We've done several reports on them. Chris Morton, we pointed out, had 2 trials, like in all of last year or something like that.
And you went back and forth with them, right?
Yes. And Judge Morton, we would just love to have you on here to talk to us. He came out ahead, and so did Hillary Unger. Judge Hillary Unger, please come on Behind Breaking Bond. Do an interview with us so you can have your voice heard and tell people why they should keep you in office come November. And there's one race, Jason Luong is going to be in the runoff, which is, what is the
runoff is May 24th. So you have one of the judges in the Democrat primary is in a runoff with one of those opponents that we actually had here.
Andrea Bell, very impressive woman. She's been in the DA's office for a while. We're going to have her on again when it gets close to the primary, so you all can hear from her again. And of course, we'd love to hear from Judge Jason Luong.
The other incumbent judge that won was Frank Aguilar of the 228.
That's correct. But yeah, every single one has an opponent in November. So that's going to be the telling election, right?
I think for the first time in history, you're going to have more emphasis and focus on judicial elections than you've ever had. And we saw it in the primaries, and we're going to see it in the general election.
It's going to heat up, isn't it? Because again, crime is the big issue here. And our own DA has pointed out that the reason that crime is on the rise here, ladies and gentlemen, is because of bail. There you go. We got a special guest, Caitlin. Introduce yourself, Caitlin.
Yes, so I'm Caitlin Fry. I am the programs manager between 2 of our programs, Safe School Institute and Safe Community Institute. Thanks for having me.
They both begin with S.
They do.
Yes, well, there's not much difference between the middle letter, and that's very hard to say sometimes. You're like SSI, SCI.
Well, tell us what you do.
So I'm in schools, majority of my job throughout the day, but with the schools we go in pre-K all the way up, sometimes even colleges, when we talk about prevention topics, cyber safety, teen dating, human trafficking, social media, and mental health, because we want to kind of start early. I was a teacher before this, and that's the one thing I think besides core subjects kids need is realistic intervention. We're handing them devices and we're handing them phones, and they're having to navigate on their own. And so that's what we do with parents too, is also teach the parents that side. So I like to go into schools. We have real conversations. We see what's going on, like what these kids' thoughts are, why there's being threats being put out online, and just what kind of where they're coming from. Because in the news lately, we've seen a lot more kids become involved.
Yeah.
Like the district out west, I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but KISD, they had the school kid, or they had the group of kids go after school, and now there's a kid dead.
Right.
You covered that, right?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that, but it's like we need to go in. We also talk to them the importance about reporting, and you're not snitching, you're speaking out so something like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I can't even imagine growing up in a digital age. I mean, it's like when I was in school, if somebody picked on you, I mean, bullying was pretty much confined to sort of the schoolyard, right? It was, you didn't go home and then have people on social media bullying you and saying terrible, awful things. I mean, we've seen situations where kids they've committed suicide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did a parent presentation last night with a group of parents who were feisty because they were upset because it was happening. And they were like, how are we getting this to stop? Because what was also happening is their kids would go home, there would be a completely new situation, and then guess where it would end up? In the classroom, and none of their kids could learn. So we're seeing that too, and parents are like, well, what can I do? And so thanks to like David's legacy, because David Molak, who unfortunately committed suicide due to cyberbullying back in 2016, they've allowed legislation to come into the school. And now schools have a little bit more power of helping students if they're dealing with outside bullying and cyberbullying situations, if it's impacting the school environment, which 99% of the time it is.
Yeah.
Because it's infecting there. And so what you can also do is the parents can go to David's Lexi and get consultation, like legal consultation, to figure out what they can do as a parent. Because
That's
parents
great.
feel helpless right now.
Yeah.
They do, and they don't know how to deal with it. And if you have older parents like my dad, he just says, oh, suck it up and get over it.
Yeah.
But we can't do that anymore.
Right.
Our kids can't just suck it up and get over it because
Well, and that, I mean, that was the generation I grew up. It was walking off, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
yeah.
We just did. That's
there
kind
were
of
no
what we did.
residual, it wasn't like it would affect you the rest of your life, because,
Absolutely.
correct me if I'm wrong, there was, years ago, I would say there is no such thing as delete on anything. Is that
Right.
still in effect, or?
I would definitely say the thing about this is there was a percentage of kids, and I'm not going to say a percentage because I don't remember it off the top of my head. I don't want to get it wrong. They did a study, and there was a very high percentage of kids who thought the minute you hit delete, it was gone forever, and that actually doesn't work anymore.
Right.
You can still hit delete, but guess what? People have already screenshotted it. And it stays in the database, even if it depends. Some databases only hold information for 30 days, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And screenshots, even though I mentioned that, have been the biggest thing that have been like, oh, well, I still have proof of it. So truly, no, it never goes away.
Well, and like there will be people that, we posted stories to the web and, I want to take that off the web. Even if we did, it doesn't mean anything.
People have already read it.
Right. Or they've passed it around.
Yes.
It's like once it's out there, you can't like grab it and bring it back in.
You can't.
It's just not possible.
Yeah, and that's one thing too. We go into schools to hopefully decrease crime later on, and hopefully help kids be aware of what is going on. And so we also do like juvenile laws to help them with understanding about voting and what it means to be arrested versus detained. Because being in school, I don't know if things have changed. I went to a public school in Louisiana, not very big. I not once was told how to do my taxes, how to vote, where to vote, any of that. And most kids don't get that. And so that's kind of what we try to bring in with like the juvenile law aspect of it, is kids knowing the difference between misdemeanor, what a felony is, what it means to get bail, and hopefully put knowledge in their brain to make decisions, as they get older.
That's great. Yeah. I was never, when I was in school, they didn't teach about, I don't even remember anybody ever saying, oh, by the way, you're going to be taxed.
Oh, no.
Right? I mean, none of that stuff is really pointed out.
No, and I still do my taxes now, and I'm like, Mom, did I just do this right? I was like, I don't own anything, but hopefully.
So you have to keep up with what's going on in the
absolutely.
tech world.
Yeah, you would.
Because kids are more savvy than any of us combined.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And they'll know tricks before they even come out. And so we stay on top of that, because we bring them to parents and they'll just stare at me like a deer in headlights. And they're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And I'm like, well, now you do. And that's perfect. And I love what Ronnie, our CEO, said. She said, it's like you handing your kid a phone, no matter what age they are, and letting them run free on the internet is like you putting them on a plane, letting them fly across the country with no parent, no adult, and hoping that they're going to navigate themselves to that country. And I was like, oh, wow. And so I use that analogy now too.
That's really very true.
It actually
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, because you don't know who you're talking to, right? I mean, the thing that I don't understand are these people that, and it's not so much kids, but like adults.
Yeah.
Oh, I fell in love with the internet. They never met him, right? They never met him.
They're being bamboozled.
The online dating sites, right, where you're meeting at places that you would not know, and you're there, and we've seen terrible things
Yeah.
that have happened, right?
But what even is crazy to me is like on Netflix, there's that show Tinder Swindler.
Yeah, I saw that's pretty good.
And I thought, and I haven't gotten to watch it, but I like read up on it. And I never want to laugh or victim shame, but I'm like, how are people going to watch this and still let it happen to them?
But
that's what I
The
did.
one thing with him though, he was like, it was sort of like a Ponzi scheme in a way where he would like wine and dine these women and take them.
Okay.
So everything looked real.
Okay.
I mean,
That
it
makes
was,
more sense.
they would go to these fancy places and he'd spend all this money. They just didn't know that he was spending some other woman's money to wine and dine them.
That makes more sense.
But the idea of, well, no, I never
How
met
do
a
you
person who makes no
explain
sense.
to students.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll think, well, I'm just gonna put out a joke and I'm gonna blow up, I'm gonna do this stuff. How do you get through to them that you can't do that?
Right.
Well, that one's actually a hard conversation to have because I can sit there until I'm blue in the face and just say, like, guys, until what I do, especially when in our juvenile law presentation, is I actually bring up stories around Houston that has happened to. January, right after school started again in KDIC, a 13-year-old was arrested for allegedly putting out a terroristic threat on a social media site. I don't remember which one. 13 years old. They arrest her on campus. And so I talk about stories like that to show them, like, now she has a felony charge.
Yeah.
Whether it be false reporting, whether it be a hoax threat, whether you actually mean it or not. And so I try to bring it to them in the way of, I know you might be mad at someone, maybe you've had a bad day, maybe something happened at school, but it's you that's going to get in trouble and be legally held accountable for how you choose to defend yourself. Because that one's actually a hard conversation to have, because it's like when someone gets mad, they're irrational, they're impulsive, and they're just going to shoot off with whatever they want that comes to mind on social media.
Well, look how it is like at the airport. I mean, you cannot, this is kind of what I always use as a gauge. When you're going through security at the airport, nothing is funny, right? I mean, it's nothing is funny about it.
I've tried, it's not.
Yeah, don't say, gee, I got a phone.
Yeah, that's
Nothing's funny. It's all serious. And I think you have to sort of look at everything that way to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might find something funny, haha, inside, but then you have to ask yourself, are other people going to find this funny, or am I going to inadvertently offend somebody? And it's just, we live in a society now where you have to really kind of hold back before you ever hit the send button right? I mean, you really do.
That's what we call cancel culture.
Yeah.
And we've also talked about it in our social media mental health about that being a toxic behavior, because it's not okay. Why are we going to constantly cancel someone out for something they said or done? Are we not allowed to make mistakes anymore?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I don't think there's anybody walking around that at one time didn't say something that they regret saying. I mean, it's just,
Hold on, let me think.
All the terrible, awful things you said to me.
I'm still thinking, it's going, this list is getting longer and longer. So when you go into school, I mean, when you're obviously with Crimestoppers, how does the reaction with Crimestoppers in school? Is it like, what do they want me to do? Rat somebody or?
With elementary kids, I would say elementary and middle, it's pretty chill. They're kind of like, oh yeah, kind of like they're afraid to raise their hand to show.
Do they know about Crimestoppers?
It's about half and half. I even had a student say, yeah, my mom's had to use the tip line before, and I'm like, well, that's fantastic. Like, I'm glad that you know what we are. But it's about half and half. I would say high schoolers know a lot more about who Crimestoppers is. I've definitely gone into schools before and they do say, oh, you're just a snitch line. And I give them the spiel and go into like, no, we're not. And I don't know if maybe and again, me being a teacher, I remember doing this. Are you tattletaling or is someone bleeding? And so we put that into the kid's head, like you're just tattletaling. And I think maybe that's kind of created this stigma around reporting things. And is it actually, and I've even had kids say to me, well, I don't want my friend to get in trouble. Well, I don't want my friend to get in trouble either. However, if they're doing something that's dangerous to themselves that could potentially hurt or endanger other kids, like the one we had where the kid was selling pills out of his backpack, could that pill have killed somebody if no one had reported it? Probably. Yeah. So I have to put it in perspective of you're doing the right thing and no one's actually going to know you reported it anyway. So what do you have to lose?
Exactly.
No one is, unless you go around telling people, which most kids, I don't see why they would want to.
Right.
Because they're afraid of becoming the target. So just say, what do you have to lose? We don't know anything about who you are. You're not going to be called up to the office and say, hey, Andy Kahan, I need you reported to Crimestoppers tip line. You need to come down here.
Right.
You don't know.
And that is the beauty of what you all do, is that it's completely anonymous. So you don't have to worry about somebody coming back and saying, hey, you ratted me
The
out.
only person I have to worry about coming back is you. That's it. You're like clockwork. Every Tuesday,
Well, and I will say too, going back to that, I just thought of something funny in my head. Anytime I'm with my friends, and we're grown adults here at this point, anytime they talk about anything, they're like, oh, don't say it out loud. Caitlin's going to go report it to her snitch line. And I'm like, I can't win for nothing with these adults. How am I going to, I want to make sure these kids are getting the right, message with it all. But I think it's funny. They always make fun of me.
Have you ever reported it now, what they said?
No, because it wouldn't matter. I mean, it's been years. It wouldn't even, or not years, but the situation I'm talking about here, it happened before I even knew him, and I don't even think.
Well, and you pretty much, I mean, you would have to have, like, okay, if I thought I had something, it would have to be like first hand, right? And I could
Yeah.
say, well, Raymond told me that, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
you're gonna be vetted out quickly.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're
If
gonna read
it-
it and be like,
Yeah, if everything Raymond said, well, then we'll.
But does
we need to
Raymond
talk
get
to
the $5,000?
No.
up to. It's never just
Up to.
5,000.
No, unfortunately, we are banned, right? You don't, if you're a member of the news media, you do not qualify for a Crimestoppers
No,
award, right?
Neither do we. We have to report it no matter what. We're not
Right.
mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to join him in so many times. Never got a dime. We got any questions out there?
Lynette, Facebook viewer, says, my daughter was in elementary school. She was bullied to the point where a boy broke her wrist. She had to leave the school, had to pull her out altogether. The school did nothing. These schools don't care.
We get a lot of story tips from parents that they do. And I don't know the situation, but they feel like that that the school is not reacting enough, or they're not making sure that, Billy and Johnny are completely separated, or they're not going to come in contact, be in the same classroom. I mean, do you hear those kind of complaints too?
So I've got two points of view from this. I'm not a parent, so it's hard for me to have that type of kind of like perspective to put in that. But that is one thing I get from parents a lot, is the schools aren't doing anything. What do we do? So on that side, thankfully, going back to David's Legacy, if you feel that davidslegacy.org has a full consultation page where you can contact them. I'm not sure. I think it's free at the beginning. I'm not sure price wise, but you can reach out to them, explain to them what's going on, and they can legally help you, because you are your child's biggest advocate.
Right.
You are. And no one can help your child better than you can as a parent. And so that's why thankfully there is an organization. And what David's Legacy has also done is it's put in cyberbullying law as a punishable law into place for the Texas Education Code. So schools, while they do have more power to be involved, you still have to help them out. You still have to be there to support.
Yeah.
On the school side, and I'm not defending anyone doing anything, but me being a teacher, I remember the stress that I dealt with a lot with having 20 kids in my classroom, but then also having to make sure they're getting their instruction hours every single day, make sure all kids are safe, healthy as much as possible, and then having administration telling you, hey, like, you need to do all these things. And it can be hard, especially if you have one kid coming to you saying, well, this is happening to me, and then another kid's like, no, that's not how it happened. It is harder. And I'm not defending or making excuses.
Yeah, you could get a he said, she said,
absolutely.
and if you're not witnessing this yourself.
Right, and so it can be hard. There's many parts to that. But again, as a parent, you are your child's biggest advocate. And whatever your child say, you have the right to defend it. Absolutely. And so sometimes it takes bringing in outside organizations, outside help.
I mean, what was it again? David's Legacy?
David's Legacy.
I hadn't even heard of that before. That's
good to know.
Yes.
Learn something new.
So if you have an issue where your child is being bullied, or you know somebody that's having that problem, it sounds like David's Legacy is the place to go.
It's David's Legacy Foundation. I can pull up the website. I believe it's just davidslegacy.org, but they have everything, and we partner them with our bullying prevention presentations.
So if somebody went to the Crimestoppers website, what would they find?
They could go to our resource center, and in our resource center, you could click on the very left-hand side, bullying prevention, and you would find a link to the David's Legacy website, as well as videos we've done and our bullying prevention tips for kids and for parents.
I mean, obviously, Crimestoppers does much more than just, give tips and for solving crimes. I mean, you all do a lot of stuff in
more
the
than
community.
breaking bonds.
No. Is there a behind Crimestoppers, Andy? I think not.
Not to the point.
But you got a
but-
podcast.
Oh, yeah, we do.
But no, they're a great organization, and
We have a segment tonight, right?
yes, be sure to tune in. Mr. Producer here. Be sure to tune in to tonight's 9 p.m. newscast for an episode of Breaking Bond. We do it every Tuesday night. We do this every Tuesday afternoon at 3. Come rain or shine. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you.